The spotlight burned hotter than shame ever had, and Matteo felt it sear through his janitor's uniform as laughter rippled across the emptying concert hall. "Come on," the famous singer Lena Voss said, her voice amplified through a microphone worth more than his yearly salary. "You sing all the time while you mop. Don't be shy now. Give us a solo." Her smile was sharp, practiced, and cruel, and the last of the crew paused, sensing something ugly unfolding. Matteo's hands tightened around the mop handle, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. He had sung only to survive the silence of his nights, never to be seen, never to be measured against someone like her. Matteo had worked in the hall for 6 years, arriving before dawn and leaving long after the applause faded. He knew the place by smell and echo, the citrus cleaner on marble floors, the hollow hush of empty seats, the way a single footstep could sound like a confession. Music had once been his world, too, back home where his mother hummed while cooking and his father tuned a battered guitar every Sunday. But life had tightened its grip. Bills, illness, immigration paperwork, and the long grind of invisibility had pushed singing into the corners of his life. He sang while scrubbing toilets, while polishing brass rails, while the world slept. It was the only place his voice felt safe. Lena Voss was a different universe. She was a star manufactured by talent and relentless ambition, a voice that climbed charts and a face that sold dreams. She was known for perfection, for never missing a note, for demanding absolute silence backstage. Tonight she was exhausted and irritated, her rehearsal had gone badly, and the hall felt like an enemy that swallowed sound. When she heard Matteo singing softly as he worked, something in her snapped. Maybe it was envy of how unguarded his voice sounded, or maybe it was just power flexing itself where it could. She called him out, made it a joke, framed cruelty as entertainment. "I can't," Matteo said quietly, his accent thickening when fear rose. "Please, I'm just cleaning." His mind raced through consequences, losing the job, being laughed at, confirming every small belief that he didn't belong in places like this. Lena tilted her head, feigning curiosity, and waved to the few staff members lingering. "Oh, don't be dramatic. We all need a laugh after tonight. Sing what you were singing. Or are you only brave when no one's listening?" The challenge landed like a blow. Matteo had spent years shrinking himself, swallowing words, avoiding notice. This wasn't just about singing. It was about being forced into a light he hadn't chosen. He looked at the floor, then at the seats rising like a dark sea. Somewhere in the back, the sound engineer paused, fingers hovering over sliders. A young intern bit her lip, torn between discomfort and curiosity. Matteo thought of his mother, of how she used to say that a voice was a gift that grew heavier when you hid it too long. His hands shook, but something steadied in his chest, a quiet resolve born from too many small humiliations. He set the mop aside. "One song," he said, barely above a whisper. Lena shrugged, triumphant, and stepped back, offering the stage with a mocking bow. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to no one, "our janitor." The microphone felt cold and unfamiliar. Matteo closed his eyes, breathing in the dust and history of the hall. He didn't choose a pop anthem or a crowd pleaser. He chose a song his father used to sing, one that carried sorrow and stubborn hope, a melody that demanded honesty more than technique. The first note trembled, thin as a thread. Lena smirked, but then Matteo leaned into the sound, not pushing, not performing, just letting the song find its way out. His voice deepened, warmed, and spread through the hall like sunrise through fog. It wasn't polished. It was raw, textured with years of unshed tears and quiet endurance. When he reached the high notes, something astonishing happened. They rang clear and effortless, hovering with a purity that seemed to lift the ceiling itself. The sound engineer's eyes widened as he instinctively adjusted levels, not to correct, but to honor what was happening. Lena's smile faltered. She knew those notes. She had chased them in studios, strained for them under scrutiny, built her reputation on hitting them cleanly. Matteo didn't attack them. He trusted them. Each phrase carried a weight she recognized but had never fully owned. The hall, empty moments ago, felt crowded now, filled with the ghosts of every person who had ever sung to survive. The intern wiped her eyes. A security guard leaned against the wall, stunned. Even Lena felt something crack open in her chest, an uncomfortable mirror reflecting back the cost of her own climb. Matteo sang through fear, through the memory of nights he'd cried into his pillow, through the ache of being unseen. The song ended not with a flourish, but with a soft descent, a final note that lingered like a held breath. Silence followed, heavy and reverent. No one laughed. No one spoke. Lena lowered the microphone slowly, her face flushed not with triumph but with something like shame. For a moment, she looked smaller, stripped of the armor fame had given her. "That's enough," she said, but her voice lacked authority. Matteo opened his eyes, bracing for the fallout. Instead, he saw awe, confusion, and something else he hadn't expected: respect. He stepped back, heart racing, and reached for his mop as if it were a lifeline. Lena watched him, struggling with the realization that she had tried to mock someone whose gift rivaled her own. The challenge had flipped, exposing her insecurity to a room full of witnesses. The days that followed were heavy with whispers. A clip recorded on a phone leaked, grainy but undeniable. Comments exploded online, not mocking Matteo but praising him, questioning how many voices like his had been ignored. The hall's management called him into an office, and he braced himself for reprimand. Instead, they asked him to sing again, privately this time, with a pianist. Matteo almost declined, fear curling tight in his stomach, but he remembered the way the hall had listened. He sang, and the walls listened again. Lena avoided him for a week. When she finally sought him out, it wasn't on a stage. It was in the quiet of the hall after midnight, where echoes told the truth. "I was wrong," she said, the words awkward and unpracticed. Apologies were not part of her brand. "I used you to feel bigger. And you reminded me why I started singing at all." Matteo didn't know what to say. Forgiveness wasn't simple, and power imbalances didn't dissolve with a sentence. But he nodded, acknowledging the humanity in her admission. Another challenge emerged, quieter but no less daunting. Opportunity knocked, and with it came fear. A small label reached out, curious, cautious. Could Matteo handle the scrutiny? Could he leave the safety of anonymity? He wrestled with imposter syndrome, with the guilt of wanting more while co-workers congratulated him with forced smiles. Lena offered to help, not as a savior but as a collaborator, suggesting vocal coaches, advocating without overshadowing. Matteo set boundaries, learning to protect the voice he had once hidden. When he finally stepped onto a stage again, it wasn't as a joke. The hall was full this time, buzzing with anticipation. He sang the same song, but it sounded different now, layered with gratitude and resolve. Lena watched from the wings, clapping. First, not the loudest but the most sincerely. Matteo understood then that challenges didn't end. They transformed. The fear of being mocked had become the fear of being known, and he met it with the same quiet courage. The inspiring truth settled gently. Greatness isn't owned by titles or uniforms, and talent doesn't ask permission to exist. Voices rise where they're needed, and sometimes it takes an unkind spotlight to reveal a light that was always there.